A rustling in the tall, dry grass was their only warning. They all turned quickly, rifles and 3 pistols pointed in one motion. An emaciated figure, more skeleton than human, stumbled out of the prairie grass thicket. Patches of wispy, long white hair clung to the skull, and 2 sunken eyes stared in seeming incomprehension at them. "What in tarnation is that?" His finger pulling back on the trigger of his rifle a little instinctively. Bill stared at it for a long moment. "This ain't got nothing to do with you. Best take your nearly dead self back where you came from." The thing, clearly a person, or what was once one in better times, stopped and cocked its gaunt head at them. A hot wind began to blow, and the tattered skins it had draped itself in fluttered against it. The smell of death blew oily across the space between them, pungent enough to make eyes water, with a trace of malevolency that caused fingers to tighten even more firmly on the triggers. It made no move to retreat or come closer. The 20 yards between the 4 of them seemed dangerously close. The horses whinnied in terror, and all that could be seen of their eyes was white as they thrashed against the leads, keeping them bound to a smaller tree. It bent against the savagery of their fear. "I said you need to turn around and get. This is your last warning, stranger," Bill muttered. His tongue felt heavy, and his stomach seemed to be filled with angry hornets all of a sudden. A soft, mournful cry came from the boy hanging from the tree. "Wendigo!" Henry looked over his shoulder at the kid, and the look of terror on his face made his bladder feel close to letting loose. He looked back and without thought pulled the trigger on his revolver. Time seemed to slow as he cocked back the hammer again. He saw the first shot hit the thing in the arm. Suddenly all 3 of them were shooting. Smoke and burnt powder filled the air, along with the cacophony of miniature explosions. Yet it just stood there, head cocked and watching. His bladder did release then. He felt piss run down his leg and into his boot, but he couldn't recognize it. The involuntary reaction to the creature's eyes lighting with a soft red glow took all thought from his head. He watched as it dropped to its haunches. He saw black liquid drip from the wounds, more than he could count across its torso and limbs. Then, in a blur, it was in motion. He fumbled to reload his pistol, but his hands seemed dead. In a flash, it was on Patty. Its claws, for there was no other way to describe those 2 long fingers that ended in points, tore Patty's throat out in a single swipe. It lowered its face and drank the spewing blood. If he were capable of thought, Henry may have seen the wounds as they knitted themselves closed as it drank. It sprang into the air, and its mouth seemed to stretch far past the limits of a human jaw. Before Bill could get off another shot, he screamed in horror and pain. It bit through, clean through his shoulder. Bone and flesh and muscle tore like paper. Gouts of blood rained through the air as it bit again and again, next into Bill's chest with a sickening wet rip. Henry saw ivory bone for the briefest moment before gore made everything into bubbling crimson. Then it tore out Bill's throat. Henry knew he needed to run, to reload, to do anything but stand in his piss-soaked pants. But he couldn't will himself to do any of that, to do anything. He just stared as his 2 friends lay shuddering and convulsing in the dry dirt. The ground seemed as thirsty as the creature, red stains where the liquid seeped into it. Then its eyes were on his. The soft glow became a bonfire of evil intent. "Please don't," was all he could mutter. He heard the quaking in his own voice, barely able to recognize it as his own. The creature cocked its head again, the musculature looking more defined after it had eaten from his friends. Its jaw slowly worked. "Please don't," it whispered back to him. "Please don't." A little louder. "Please don't," it screamed, and then it leapt at him. The 3 buzzards flew above. They watched the carnage below as the one fell to its knees and feasted upon the 3 corpses. The sound of flesh tearing and bone cracking, carrying far into the night. One by one they drifted down and perched on the branches above the boy as he spun in circles. Fear emanated from his every pore as he too watched the thing eat, until all it remained was filthy clothes and blood-stained dirt. 4 sets of eyes locked upon it. Finally the creature stood, stomach distended to the fullest extent. The body now looked healthy despite the gray pallor of the skin, eyes burning like embers, like stars in the sky. It walked to the tree and stared at the boy for a long moment, then cocked its head. "Please don't," it said with no emotion. It reached up, and with a quick slash the ropes were cut, and the boy hit the ground with a breathtaking hiss. Then it turned and walked into the thicket of tall grass, without a look back. The boy scrambled to his feet and stared. Then he ran in the opposite direction. Only the 3 buzzards remained, sitting forlorn on the sagging branches of the near-dead tree, cheated out of a meal they had so patiently waited for.